It's that time again. Time for some mid-20th century mayhem, courtesy of Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller, joining you from the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, California. Today, we're hitting the road with the Tri-State Gang, a real-life band of Depression-era bank robbers whose violent exploits are updated to 1950 in the Warner Brothers release Highway 301. The studio rushed this film into production to capitalize on the success of White Heat, released the previous year and featuring an explosive comeback performance by Jimmy Cagney, playing an older and crazier version of the cocksure crooks that fueled his rise to stardom in the 1930s. But Cagney wasn't the only performer in White Heat who lit up the screen. His cohort, double-crossing Lothario Big Ed Summers, also made quite an impression on audiences. Who was this swarthy stud who dared to steal Cagney's dame? Steve Cochran had been making movies since 1945 when he signed a contract with Samuel Goldwyn. He was used mostly as a surly antagonist to Danny Kaye in comedies like Wonder Man and The Kid from Brooklyn. He was almost forgotten amid all the memorable performances in Goldwyn's The Best Years of Our Lives, but he made a singularly sinister impression as the villainous Eddie Roman in the 1946 noir thriller The Chase. He was one of several actors during the noir era who specialized in being sexy and volatile, which became his stock in trade after White Heat. The same year he made this film, Joan Crawford handpicked him to play one of her gangster lovers in The Damned Don't Cry, the latest in a series of excellent noirs she made at Warner Brothers. Highway 301 was produced by Brian Foy, who was the head of Warner's B unit during the 1930s. By 1950, he was back at the studio after stints at Fox and Eagle Lion, where he'd produced true crime hits like Canyon City and He Walked by Night. Foy found another aficionado of true crime in veteran writer-director Andrew Stone. Stone had been knocking around Hollywood since the silent era, with his only memorable movie being the 1943 black cast musical Stormy Weather. Tired of waiting for the studios to give him assignments, Stone decided to go independent. He knew which way the wind was blowing in Hollywood. Crime Pictures had maintained a steady return on investment for a studio system that was starting to crack apart. Stone convinced Foy he could turn out a dynamite crime picture for very little money. His pitch was pulled from a file of more than 15,000 true crime cases that Stone had collected as potential movie material. The actual Tri-State Gang embarked on its robbery and murder rampage in 1934, running roughshod through Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. Its leader, Walter Lagenza, the character played by Cochran, was a remorseless killer who quickly topped the FBI's most wanted list. Stone's script incorporates a number of actual incidents from the crime spree, and he presents it all in a straightforward, unromanticized way, essentially making the audience helpless hostages in a crime spree that turns shockingly violent. Be warned, there are scenes in Highway 301 that are startlingly gruesome for a studio film of the era. The shock is doubled by the cold-blooded indifference Cochran displays as an unrepentant killer. In order for a film to present crime in this much detail, filmmakers were always obligated to include an opening square-up, meant to mollify the authorities, be it the FBI, the church, or the Hollywood Production Code Office. Unfortunately, in Highway 301, we get not one, but 3 square-ups by 3 state governors. This is about a tri-state gang, after all. At least Governor Kerr Scott sports a great necktie. Once we're past the stilted square-ups, you're in for a breakneck and brutal ride. Also starring Virginia Gray and Gabby Andre, with the gang played by Richard Egan, Wally Cassell, Edward Norris, and Robert Webber in his movie debut. Here is Steve Cochran, the Elvis of noir, in Highway 301.